Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more heartwarming and emotional stories that will stay with you long after they end. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of soft orange and pink, as 7-year-old Liam sat cross-legged on the worn-out carpet of his tiny bedroom. In his small hands, he held his most prized possession, a red toy car, its paint chipped from years of love and play. It wasn't just a toy to him. It was the last gift his father had given him before he passed away, a piece of happiness in a world that often felt too heavy for a boy his age. From the other room, he could hear his mother, Rachel, coughing again. It had been getting worse lately. She tried to hide it, putting on a brave face every morning, telling him everything was fine. But Liam wasn't stupid. He saw the unopened envelopes on the kitchen counter, the way she looked paler each day, how her hands trembled when she thought he wasn't looking. She was sick, and they didn't have the money to do anything about it. Liam clenched the toy car tighter in his hand. His mom had given up everything for him, worked double shifts, skipped meals so he wouldn't go hungry. Now it was his turn. That afternoon, he made up his mind. The flea market was setting up in town. People came from all over looking for things to buy. He didn't have much to sell, but he had this car. Maybe it wasn't worth a lot, but to Liam, it was priceless. If it could bring in just a little bit of money, maybe enough to help with his mom's medicine, it would be worth it. Slipping on his 2 big sneakers, he gently placed the toy car into his backpack and headed for the market, his heart pounding in his chest. The streets were already filling with vendors, their tables overflowing with second-hand books, old furniture, handmade crafts. The smell of roasted peanuts and fresh bread filled the air, but Liam ignored his growling stomach. He wasn't here for food. Finding an empty corner near an older man selling antiques, Liam set the toy car down on a small piece of cloth he had brought from home. He scribbled a sign on a scrap of cardboard, "For sale, $20." People passed by, barely glancing at the small boy sitting on the ground. Some smiled at him. Others seemed too busy to notice. Minutes stretched into an hour, then 2. His stomach ached, but he stayed put, gripping his knees, watching the crowd, hoping. Then a shadow fell over him. Liam looked up to see a tall man in a crisp navy blue suit. He had sharp, chiseled features, but there was something unreadable in his deep-set eyes. People whispered his name as he walked by. "That's Alexander Carter," someone murmured. "The billionaire." Liam had heard the name before. Alexander Carter owned half the businesses in the city. People said he was ruthless, that he didn't believe in charity, that he only cared about profits. But none of that mattered to Liam. Right now, he was just another person walking by, another chance to sell his toy car. Liam straightened his back and tried his best to sound grown up. "Sir, do you want to buy my car?" he asked. His voice came out smaller than he intended, but he refused to let his nerves show. Alexander Carter stopped, his sharp eyes narrowing as he glanced down at the little red car. "How much?" he asked, his voice cool and unreadable. Liam swallowed. $20, sir." For a moment, the billionaire just stood there. Then he knelt, picking up the toy with careful fingers. He turned it over in his hands, inspecting the worn wheels, the faded paint. "Why are you selling it?" he asked, his tone quieter now. Liam hesitated, gripping the hem of his shirt. He could lie, say he was just getting rid of old things, like some of the other vendors here. But something about the way the man was looking at him made him tell the truth. "My mom's sick," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "We don't have money for her medicine, so I have to sell my car." Alexander Carter didn't react right away. He just stared at Liam, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. But instead of taking out a $20 bill, he pulled out a crisp 100. "I'll buy it," he said, holding out the bill. Liam's eyes widened. "But that's too much, sir." A flicker of something, surprise maybe, crossed Alexander's face. He didn't expect that. Most people would have grabbed the money without question. But this boy, he wasn't just desperate. He had pride. "Take it," Alexander said, placing the bill into Liam's small hand. "Consider it a fair price." Liam looked down at the $100 bill, his fingers shaking. That was enough for food, for medicine, for his mom to rest, even just a little. But as Alexander Carter turned to leave, something inside Liam twisted. "Wait!" Liam called after him. Scrambling to his feet, the billionaire paused, glancing back over his shoulder. Liam hesitated, then swallowed hard. You have to take the car," he said firmly. "I don't take money for nothing." Alexander stared at him, then at the small red toy in the boy's outstretched hands. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he reached for it, his fingers brushing against Liam's as he took it. For the first time in a long time, something in his chest tightened, and as he walked away, the toy car now resting in his palm, he had the strangest feeling, one he hadn't felt in years. He wasn't done with this boy yet. Alexander Carter sat in the back of his sleek black car, the little red toy resting in his palm. It was small, insignificant to most, but something about it wouldn't let him go. He turned it over in his fingers, feeling the worn-out edges, the faded paint. A child had loved this car, and that child had been willing to part with it for his mother's sake. He leaned back against the leather seat, his mind drifting back to a time he rarely allowed himself to think about. A small, cramped apartment, a mother who worked late nights, struggling to make ends meet, a little boy who had once clutched a toy of his own, the only thing that made him feel like he had something in a world where he had nothing. That boy had been him. Alexander clenched his jaw and shook the thoughts away. That was a lifetime ago. He had spent years burying that past, building walls so high around himself that no one could ever break through. But today, a little boy had cracked them without even trying. Meanwhile, Liam practically sprinted home, gripping the $100 bill like it might disappear. His mother was still resting on the couch when he walked in, her face pale, her breathing shallow. She tried to sit up when she saw him, but he rushed to her side, pressing the bill into her hands. "Mom, look! We can get your medicine now." His voice was full of excitement, but Rachel's face, filled with confusion and concern. "Liam, where did you get this?" she asked, her fingers trembling as she held the crisp bill. Liam hesitated, then told her everything. The flea market, the toy car, the man in the suit. Rachel's eyes welled with tears as she listened, not just from gratitude, but from heartbreak. Her son, her sweet, innocent little boy, had sold the only toy he had left from his father just to take care of her. "Oh, baby," she whispered, pulling him into a tight hug. "You shouldn't have." "I wanted to," Liam interrupted. "You always take care of me. I wanted to take care of you." Rachel wiped her tears quickly, forcing a smile. "Well, you're the best son in the world. And now, thanks to you, I can get better." But as she held the $100 bill in her hands, something about it nagged at her. Who was this man who had given her son so much for an old toy? Across town, Alexander sat in his office, staring out the window of his high-rise building. The toy car sat on his desk, and no matter how much he tried to focus on work, his thoughts kept drifting back to the boy and his mother. Something in him told him this wasn't over. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Find out everything you can about a boy named Liam, who was selling a toy at the flea market today. He instructed his assistant. And his mother. I want to know everything. Days passed. Liam used the money to buy his mother's medicine. And for the first time in weeks, she was able to rest without coughing fits, keeping her up all night. But the relief was temporary. The medicine was expensive, and their struggles weren't over. Rachel returned to work too soon, pushing herself because she had no choice. Then, one evening, there was a knock at their door. Rachel opened it to find a sharply dressed man standing there, holding a small envelope in his hands. "Miss Hayes?" he asked. Rachel hesitated. "Yes?" The man handed her the envelope. "Mr. Carter asked me to deliver this personally." Her stomach twisted. Mr. Carter, the same man who had bought Liam's toy. She slowly opened the envelope, her eyes widening at what she found inside. A check. More money than she had ever seen in her life. Enough to pay for her medical bills. Enough to get them out of debt. Enough to change everything. Tears blurred her vision. Why? Why would a billionaire care about them? She wanted to refuse it. She wanted to return it. But when she looked at Liam, at the hope in his eyes, she knew she couldn't. This was a chance. One she couldn't afford to throw away. But what did Alexander Carter really want? Back in his penthouse, Alexander leaned back in his chair, watching the city lights twinkle below. He had done what he could for now, but something about this still felt unfinished. He had spent his whole life keeping his distance from people, believing that attachments only led to pain. But when he had seen that boy sitting on the ground, desperate to help his mother, something in him had changed, and he wasn't sure he could walk away from this just yet. The real question was, did he even want to? Rachel sat on the couch, staring at the check in her hands. The amount was life-changing, but she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her chest. Why would a billionaire, someone who had no connection to them, care so much? She didn't know anything about Alexander Carter, but she did know one thing. Nothing in life came without a price. Liam, on the other hand, was overjoyed. "Mom, this means you don't have to work so much anymore. You can rest, and we can buy more medicine. Maybe we can even get a new place." His excitement was contagious, and for a moment, Rachel allowed herself to imagine what that kind of security would feel like. No more late-night shifts. No more worrying about bills. A stable life for Liam. But could she accept it? Before she could make a decision, there was another knock at the door. Rachel's heart pounded as she opened it, expecting another delivery. Instead, she found herself face to face with the man himself, Alexander Carter. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking strangely out of place in their small apartment building. "May I come in?" he asked. His voice was calm, but there was something in his eyes, something Rachel couldn't quite read. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Liam's eyes widened when he saw Alexander enter. "It's you, the man from the flea market." Alexander gave a small nod. "Hello again, Liam." He then turned to Rachel. "I'm sorry for showing up unannounced. I wanted to make sure you received the check." Rachel folded her arms. "I did, and I appreciate it, but I don't understand why you're doing this." For a long moment, Alexander didn't speak. He glanced around their small apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the worn-out furniture. Then he looked at Liam, the boy who had been willing to give up everything for his mother. "I know what it's like," he finally said, his voice quieter now. "To grow up watching your mother struggle, to feel powerless to help her." He exhaled slowly. "I was that kid once." Rachel's breath caught. She hadn't expected that. Alexander looked at Liam again, a faint smile touching his lips. "When I saw you at the flea market, I saw myself. And when I saw the way you love your mum, I saw my own mother. His gaze softened as he turned back to Rachel. She worked herself to the bone for me, and no one ever stepped in to help her. I wanted to do what no one did for her. Rachel's throat tightened. She had assumed this was about charity or pity, but it wasn't. It was personal. Liam stepped closer. "Did your mom get better?" he asked. Alexander's jaw tightened for a second before he shook his head. She never got the help she needed, and by the time I had money, it was too late. Silence filled the room. Rachel looked at the check again, understanding now that this wasn't just about money. It was about something deeper. After a long moment, she met Alexander's gaze. "I don't want a handout." His lips twitched slightly. "I didn't think you would." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "Come work for me." Rachel blinked. "What?" "I run one of the biggest companies in the city, and I need people like you. People who don't give up, who fight for the people they love." He placed the card on the table. "It's a real job, a fresh start, no strings attached." Rachel stared at the card, her mind racing. It was too much, too unexpected. But when she looked at Liam, at the hope shining in his eyes, she knew she couldn't let fear hold her back. She reached for the card. "Okay," Liam cheered, and for the first time in a long time, Rachel felt something other than worry. She felt hope. Weeks later, everything had changed. Rachel had a stable job, one that allowed her to be home in the evenings with Liam. They had moved into a safer apartment, and for the first time in years, they didn't have to worry about making ends meet. One evening, as they sat in their new living room, Liam was playing with a brand new toy car when there was a knock at the door. When Rachel opened it, Alexander stood there, a small box in his hands. "I thought Liam might want this back," he said, holding out the little red car he had bought that day at the flea market. Liam's eyes lit up as he took it. "You kept it?" Alexander nodded. "Some things are worth holding on to." Rachel met his gaze and smiled. "Thank you for everything." Alexander hesitated, then smiled back. "You and Liam did all the hard work. I just gave you a push." As he turned to leave, Liam called out, "Wait, do you want to stay for dinner?" Alexander paused, surprised. Then, after a moment, he nodded. "I'd like that." And just like that, a family that had once felt broken was whole again, not because of money or charity, but because of kindness, love, and the simple act of believing in second chances.